There has been no formal investigation of the many anecdotal reports that some individuals are highly sensitive to fluoride, gastrointestinal, neurological, and skin conditions, even though people have volunteered to be guinea pigs if the government would attempt to put this on a scientific level. But Canada has not attempted to do that. If you don't look, you don't find. The absence of studies does not mean the absence of harm. Now, this is another episode of Monty Python. It came to us on April the 1st. It was either 2007 or 2008. I can't remember which. But I was there. I was in the audience. And it was videotaped, so there's no doubt about what happened. Dr. Peter Cooney, the Chief Dental Officer of Canada, told an audience in Dryden, and I'll try to get the accent right. He said, "I walked down your high street today, and I didn't see anyone growing horns, and you've been fluoridated for 40 years. Now, I have this vision of Health Canada. It has a huge department there of horn specialists. There are cow horn specialists, bull horn specialists, deer horn specialists, even moose horn specialists. And these gentlemen and ladies are going across Canada, looking everywhere to see if there are any horns growing out of our heads. And if they don't find any horns growing out of our heads, then they rightfully conclude that fluoridation is safe. And that's the level of expertise of your Chief Dental Officer of Canada. I think it's clear from what I've said that the science indicates that fluoridation should be ended. Go to our webpage, fluoridealert.org. You'll find a huge health database. Go there and see the videotape. There are 200. Somebody has very kindly donated 200 copies of this DVD. You're invited to get, for a small donation, to get this DVD. It's 28 minutes long. Some of you saw it at the beginning. 15 scientists, including the Nobel Prize winner, Arvid Carlsson, 3 authors of the National Research Council report, 2 scientists who work for the EPA. One of them was a health risk assessment specialist. 2 dentists who had previously been pro-fluoridation but have changed their position. By the way, I know of many prominent promoters of fluoridation who, after reading the literature, have changed their position to an anti-fluoridation position. I know of nobody that is anti-fluoridation that has read anything which has persuaded them to be pro-fluoridation. So basically, if someone is pro-fluoridation, it's pretty clear evidence that they haven't read the literature. Then there's this, this is the videotape that I just talked about, but also on the video, on the web page, you will find that now we have 3,600 professionals from around the world, dentists, nurses, pharmacists, veterinarians, dental hygienists, lawyers, architects, all kinds of professionals have signed this statement calling for an end to fluoridation worldwide. And we've had to do that. We've had to do that because they insist that people like myself who oppose fluoridation are a bunch of Looney Tunes. That we get all our science, it's all junk science, we get it from the internet, all this kind of stuff. And we've got to convince them that no, it's intelligent people who read the literature who are opposed to fluoridation. And now we have... And now we have the book. I urge you to read this book. Get your library to get it. You don't have to pay. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not here to make money. I don't charge for anything I do on this stuff. I said to my wife after this was published, now after 14 years, I said, Ellen, it feels like I've been constipated for 14 years and they've just allowed me to have a crack. And she said, don't say that. Don't say that. They think the book's a load of you-know-what. No, it isn't a load of you-know-what. But I feel that we've done our job. The 3 of us, the biologist, the physicist, and the chemist, we've done our job. We've read the literature, we've thought about it, we've summarized everything, we've made our arguments absolutely crystal clear, we've documented every single fact. We've outlined our case in detail. We've documented everything. Now we need the US and Canadian health authorities to do their job. And as far as London is concerned, it's time for your health officials to do their job. And it's as simple as this. They could do it in two ways. Dr. Pollard, I don't want to be personal. I've never met this guy. I'm sure he's a very nice person. Okay, but he's got a job to do. His job is to promote fluoridation. If he doesn't, he's going to lose his job. But basically, there's two things that he can do. One is to read the National Research Council report very thoroughly and then state whether in his professional judgment there's an adequate margin of safety to protect all Canadians from the health effects documented in this book. I think he's going to find it very difficult to tell the truth and say that there's an adequate margin of safety. But let's see what he has to say on that. But that's what he has to do. He can't just blow this off. He's got to say, if he wants to continue to promoting fluoridation, he has to say that there's an adequate margin of safety to protect everyone. I don't think he can say that scientifically. Maybe he will have to say it politically. And the second thing that they have to do, and Mrs. Washkowski, what's her name? Washkowski? Yeah, Washkowski. She was saying that fluoridation was safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective on radio. Her job is to read this book. She says she's reading it. And I want to hear a scientific response from her. I want to see where we're wrong. I want her to tell me why the evidence that we produce is wrong. And if she can't do that, then she cannot keep telling you that fluoridation is safe and effective. She just can't be allowed to do that. They've got to admit that fluoridation was a huge mistake, and they must stop it now. And the good news is now coming up. The support for fluoridation is crumbling. Recent events, I told you that January the 7th, they've lowered the optimal levels. January the 10th, the EPA Pesticide Division said they've accepted all our objections to the use of sulfuryl fluoride as a fumigant on food, which left residues of fluoride. They said we're going to phase this out over the next 3 years because children in America are already overexposed to fluoride. In Canada, less than 40% of Canada is now fluoridated. Most of British Columbia has stopped. Most of Quebec has stopped. That happened when Quebec City stopped in April of 2008 after 36 years. Over 90% of Quebec is no longer fluoridated. 3 towns in the Niagara region of Ontario stopped fluoridation in 2008. Dryden, Ontario voted out fluoridation in 2008 after hearing Dr. Peter Cooney. And Waterloo, Kitchener, and I see Robert Fleming. Stand up, Robert, stand up. Stand up. This man, this man put so much of his own personal money and so much of his time to defeat fluoridation in Waterloo, Kitchener. I was nearly killed, by the way. I was nearly killed. I was trying to find his office, and I was being driven by somebody else, and we'd been looking for his office. And all of a sudden, we saw this gigantic sign, "Vote no to fluoridation." We were so excited, we went straight across the intersection of the road. Just missed the oncoming traffic. That was very, very exciting. And I shouldn't mention Robert Fleming without mentioning another hero from this area, along with Pam, of course, is a great hero of all of us. And that's Carol Clinch, who's done fantastic work, really hounding Canadian health authorities and all the ridiculous illegalities of their promotion of fluoridation. So Carol Clinch, are you in the audience? I don't see her, but when you see her, give her a big hug. Okay. Calgary, Alberta Council voted 10-3 to end fluoridation after 20 years in February. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but my co-author, James Beck, led the fight against that for years and years and years. And he used this book. This book was the final punch to persuade those councillors to stop fluoridation. So that's a good omen for this book, right? One of the co-authors has already stopped. Now, in the United States, the latest communities, we got about at least 100 that have stopped. Independence, Virginia, Yellow Springs, Ohio, Schuylkill, Haven, Pennsylvania, stopped relatively recently. In January 2000, this is exciting, Peter Valone Jr., a councilman, chairman of one of the council committees, introduced a bill to end fluoridation in New York City. If New York City goes, that is America. So this is it. It's going to be tough. We're up against a lot of heavy hitters down there who are determined to keep it in fluoride in New York City, but at least it's a beginning. And for a complete listing of communities that have stopped, you can find them on our webpage. You can find, just look for communities that have stopped fluoridation. But there have been some setbacks. In February of 2011, they fluoridated San Diego. That's a lot of people. 2 or 3 million people. That's pretty darn sad. And just yesterday, this is, okay, I repeated this thing to get that, okay. Yesterday, all my troubles. On March the 1st, the Arkansas legislature voted to introduce statewide mandatory fluoridation. We only heard about it 2 or 3 days ago when it was coming out of the committee. It went from the committee, it was voted on by the whole Senate the next day, and then the next working day, the House voted it in, this legislation. Incredible. And this is work all behind the scenes by PR operatives, big budget, and the dental director of Arkansas, working, smooching around with all the legislators, and before the public knew anything about it, they've got mandatory fluoridation in Arkansas. And they did this with Louisiana a couple of years ago, and I suspect we're going to see a whole series of southern states fall over like dominoes. Because whilst we can take them on one community at a time, when you try to fluoridate a community and people get upset, the media starts getting interested, you get a debate, you get both sides, and if people hear both sides and the press does a half-decent job, then the people will not vote for it. But we are not strong enough, and we don't have their kind of money to beat them at the lobbying game in these capitals, these state capitals. So this is pretty ominous, what is happening there. And that makes it even more important that London, Ontario follows Waterloo's example. We need more and more cities like Waterloo, like Calgary, hopefully like London, to stop. And trust me, in going around Australia, in Perth, in New South Wales, in Victoria, everybody knew about Calgary. Everybody knew about Calgary. Everybody knew about Waterloo. These victories go around the world so quickly with internet and emails. They're all celebrating there. And particularly the people in Perth, you like this, Robert, the people in Perth said, you know, we feel quite an affinity for Calgary. We're very similar economy, very similar. We're a resource-based economy. We're also quite away from the centre in Perth, from the rest of Australia, from the government in Canberra. And so they feel they've got a good shot of copying Calgary in Perth. So please don't underestimate what we can do. But don't forget, the first thing we've got to do is to get those warnings. Get those warnings on the water bill. No parent should unjustifiably, unnecessarily expose their babies to fluoridated water, tap water. Let's get the warnings on the bill. And again, it's not the most important issue, but I absolutely assure you that this is the easiest issue to end, to stop, once we have the political will. Once we have the political will, it's just, that's all you need. Like a big hand, just turn off that spigot at the waterworks and it's all over. And they've done that in Waterloo. They've turned off the spigot and it's all over. And isn't it great, Robert, to be able to go downtown, drink any water that you want, any cup of coffee that you want, go to work and you can drink it, because that's what happened to us in Canton, New York. It took us 7.5 years, but we got it out of our town.